Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're starting at the listed property over in Kent and we're going to start snagging the first floor and getting the waste pipes into the soils. Okay, so this is a new soil stack we put in the other day that replaced that cast iron stack. So this waste pipe coming out of the wall here is actually for the bath. So we've kept the bath totally separate to everything else. I didn't want to tee it into the shower or anything because we might risk obviously getting some gargling noises, etc. So that's what this one here is. So basically just plumbed it straight into the T on the side, so that keeps that pipe run nice and short. I did initially add this extra boss here just in case we needed to pick up any of the basins, but I don't think we're going to need to now as everything's picked up on the inside, but that's fine where it is. And obviously if ever you get a blockage or anything, you could just cut into one of those bosses to put an access plug. So what I will do is once these pipes are a bit more tidied up and also get an answer on what's happening with this rainwater pipe, we'll put a piece of pipe on there, take it above basin height and add a Durgo or air admittance valve. Okay, so this is the waste pipe that comes from the other bathroom on the first floor. So we did have a few issues working out how we was going to terminate this pipe because above here is a pitch roof with a lead flashing, but we did manage to poke it through a ceiling void. So what we're going to be doing is putting a strap boss on the face of this soil pipe. I can't put it on the side because I can't get the drill in, and then yeah, just get it plumbed in. But what we do is when we fit strap bosses, we normally use these side strap ones, so they're a lot easier to fit, I find, rather than the ones with a nut and bolt. And the hole saw size we use is 60mm. So we use these Bosch bits. The reason I like these is because they're quite easy just to connect on. So the arbor that you use, they literally just push straight in. They are a little bit more expensive, but they do work really well. I wouldn't say they cut any better. It's more just the pace you can chop and change, especially when you're a plumber or electrician. It literally just pushes in like that. I can't do it with one hand, but that just pushes in and yeah, away you go. So one thing I've actually changed recently is the way I actually adhere these to the soil pipe. So I used to just cover these in solvent glue, and I'll say 9 times out of 10 they're fine, but I have had a few recently where you just develop this weep coming out the bottom. So what we're doing is, this time, is I'm actually going to use Stixxor, very similar to CT1 I would say. Whether or not it's as good as not, I don't know, but haven't had any issues so far. Yeah, and just use that to seal it. So the only thing I would say is this definitely does take 24 hours to actually set properly. So if you're going to be wiggling this around and moving it a lot, best thing to do is fit this first and then come back the next day if you can to continue the pipe work. But as long as you're careful, you'll be fine. Okay, so the waste pipe's all glued up now. This actually accommodates the shower and the basins, unfortunately, but it's the only thing we can really do to get a waste pipe in, as we haven't got enough room to feed another one through. Also, it's not ideal to have 3 bends like this. If you can avoid it, then great. Also, you might want to use an access T here, but because we're trying to box this in nice and tight, I'm not going to put it. But if there's any issues with this, I know exactly where it is and it will be accessible through the boxing. Okay, so we're back upstairs on the first floor and Bailey's just starting to get the pipework lag. So part L is throwing up quite a lot of problems for us and in terms of running copper through joists. So I'm not really sure what the solution is going to be, because at the moment we're going to be putting 9mm insulation between each joist. We've got the felt lagging between the copper pipes actually through the noggins, which I'm happy with, and that's all nailed down. So the problem arises when they want 13mm, because that means we can't notch the joist deep enough to accommodate that. So what is going to happen with copper installs, and there's only so many times you can get away with drilling through the actual joists themselves and feeding it through from either outside or some sort of access point. So on this job we're going to be covering it in 9mm, just your standard insulation. I can't seem to get the rubber flex or the armour flex in 9mm, so if any of you know where to get that from, let me know. And yeah, we'll just get this whole thing covered. So one thing to mention is we haven't actually pressure tested it all yet, but we are confident that it's going to be okay, and if it does leak, we'll still see it dripping through the ceiling. Right, so we've just been throwing some lagging on these main run pipes and getting them cable tied so they comply with this new Part L regulation. So basically all we're doing is cutting insulation between the joists, whoa, nearly fell through then, and then cable tying the ones that are quite close together. So when they're close together like that, what I'm doing is I'm taking out a 10mm slice almost. So I'm just taking a small amount out of the insulation just so I can button them up to each other and get them cable tied together like that. So that is the hot and the hot return. So obviously with the hot and the hot return, that needs to be lagged. So that's always been the way. That Part L doesn't really change that. So if you're not lagging your hot returns, you really should do, because you're constantly losing temperature through your hot water, and then as it's going back to the cylinder, it'll actually start cooling it. So that's always been the case, but I still don't agree with insulating central heating. I do believe that if the heat's escaping into the house, it doesn't really matter too much, and how much heat are you actually losing, let's face it. So yeah, but we brought about 80 meters of insulation, 22 to make a start on this, and it's only gone as far as there. So that kind of puts into context how much copper pipe we've used, because we've got to go all the way to the other end of the building down there. So what we're going to be doing now is just capping off some of these radiators, which we still don't have the towel radiator valves for. So we want to get it into a position where we can actually fill this all up at some point soon, because no doubt the builder's going to want to start putting these floors down. And yeah, just finishing off any other snagging up here so we can move downstairs and move on with our lives. Okay, so we've moved back down to a project in East Sussex now, and what we are doing is fitting an Ideal Vogue Max system boiler and replacing an old Potterton Suprema, and we're going to make it domestic hot water priority. So what we're doing is we've just ripped out the Suprema. It's quite straightforward. We've got 28mm flow and returns here, and the kitchen's also being updated, so we don't have to worry too much about that. So what we are going to do with the boiler location is move it further over to the right and slightly higher so it can be accommodated in a larder cupboard. The gas here is actually 22mm, but the boiler we're fitting is actually only 18 kilowatts, so we'll still come off of that. That's fine. It's quite handy that's there. I wasn't expecting this 22mm pipe to be there within the box that we've just removed. So up in the airing cupboard, we are going to be replacing the pump, or taking the pump out because it's a system boiler. I'll explain a bit more about that later. So yeah, at the moment we're just getting it drained down and getting it ready to work on. Okay, so this is the boiler we're going to be installing today. It's the Ideal Vogue Max system, 18 kilowatt, and it comes with 10 years warranty or 12 years warranty if you're an Ideal and accredited installer. The Max version comes with this Ideal filter, so it's always worth getting a Max version because you're going to be purchasing a filter anyway, so that comes with it. We fit a lot of these, and to be honest, these are probably one of my favourite boilers, this in system or the combi version. You've got a colour LCD screen here, which is really customer friendly. It's quite easy to use, I would say, and yeah, everyone seems to give me good feedback on it. You've got a pressure gauge here on the right, so some boilers seem to be doing away with the analog gauge, but I think it's still handy for the customer to be able to see exactly what the pressure is and not trying to figure it out on the digital display. It's got a weighted door on it, so it closes up, makes it look nice and neat, and the door itself, like I say, is weighted, so it actually feels like an expensive bit of kit. We fitted probably more of these than any other boiler over the past 5 years, and I've not had one single problem with them as far as I can tell. So the only issue with them is they're not standard cupboard fit. They will go into a larder cupboard, and you can't rear pipe them without the standoff kit. So on this particular one, what we're going to do is actually drop the pipes down on the left and then come up underneath and get it all piped up. So yeah, it's a great bit of kit, British made and really reliable. Okay, this is the airing cupboard inside the property, and as you can see, it's already got a pressurised cylinder, which is great. Also, the central heating system is already a pressurised system, so these houses are fairly new. I think they're approximately 20 years old, somewhere in that range. So, which is really good news, because it means we've already got the bypass, or the system's already used to high pressure, and obviously that means it's quite suitable just to swap straight over to a system boiler. So one thing that I am changing is I'm actually going to be removing this pump here. So the reason I'm doing that is the new boiler has a pump inside of it, which basically means that the pump will now be covered under the warranty from Ideal. So this pump is probably as old as the property itself, and what I don't want to do is fit a regular boiler and then realise, you know, in a few months' time I'm going to have to change the pump. So part of the job that we're here to do today is I'm going to take this pump out and then literally just pipe it up, just replace it with a bit of 22mm, and then I will also update the auto bypass, because like I say again, that's probably about 20 years old. And then because we're going to be making it domestic hot water priority, I need to change the central heating zone valve to a normally open valve. So basically what that does is it means the central heating zone valve's always open unless the hot water's on. So as soon as the hot water calls for demand, the central heating zone valve is going to shut off and allow the boiler just to heat up the hot water separate from the central heating. Okay, so the pump is all out and I've just cut in a bit of 28mm pipe in there to replace it. So we are on now to replacing the central heating zone valve, which is this straight one over here. So what we've got here is a Honeywell normally open zone valve. So these are more likely to be seen in a solid fuel installation. So the reason being, they almost like a safety device, they'll shut off once they're energized, not open up. So under normal conditions, they're totally open, and then when you ask it to, it just shuts off. So first part of getting this domestic hot water priority set up in is replacing the central heating zone valve with this valve. Okay, so we've got the old zone valve off now and I'm about to put the new Honeywell on. So you still need to make sure you get the direction around the right way. There is still a directional arrow on it, and also the main difference I would say visually is there's no manual lever on the bottom, so it's just a blank hole there. So yeah, let's get it on. Okay, so while I've been upstairs just messing around in the airing cupboard, Bailey's managed to get the boiler all hung and the flue in, so he's flying down here. So as you can see, we've got two 28mm feeds flow and return on the left, but to be honest, the 28mm stops before it gets to the zone valve, so I'm not really sure why they've done that, to be honest. So what Bailey's going to do is going to run the pipes down the side here, loop them up underneath and pick up the gas there on the right. So plumbing wise, really the only difference is on a hot water priority system. On a S-plan when you're retrofitting is just the normally open zone valve on the central heating, so everything else is pretty much the same. The main difference comes with the wiring. So what we do is I'll get this wiring centre open, see what we're dealing with. So onto the wiring then, and the main difference really, like I said, between hot water priority and the standard S plan is the wiring. So when you're retrofitting, it can be particularly difficult to get two switch lives back to your boiler location. So as you can see, the boiler's not located here, it's located downstairs on the opposite side of the house. But what we're doing is by replacing the pump and having the pump internal in the boiler, that means we've got a pump live going down to the boiler location, which we're no longer going to need. So I'm hoping to be able to steal that cable and use that as our second switch live. So what I'm going to do first is I need to identify what cable is the pump live down to the boiler, separate that, and then I also need to identify what is the switch live coming out of the room stat going to the brown wire on the old central heating zone valve. So once I've got those located, I can begin to make my alterations. Unfortunately, like a lot of new builds around here, we've got one of these Potterton Control PWB1 wiring centres, so definitely making my life a little bit harder. But what I'll do is I'll try and explain to you exactly how I'm rewiring this wiring centre, and hopefully it will make sense. But do not take this as gospel. This is only applicable to this job that I'm on, but hopefully it might be able to help you out if you're considering doing this yourself. So the main alterations you need to make on a standard S plan. So an S plan is when you've got zone valve. So on this particular job, there's only one heating zone and one hot water zone, and I would say that is typical amongst most smaller British homes. So what I've done is I have taken out the pump. So the external pump's no longer needed, so I've identified the pump live wire, removed the neutral and earth, and that pump live wire, which was returning back to the boiler, is now going to be my second switch live. So my second switch live is basically linked directly to the room thermostat. So normally you would have your common coming back out your room thermostat, and then that would go to the brown wire to your central heating zone valve. So that's the main change. Our new zone valve won't require that because it's actually going to be controlled via the hot water coming on and off. So what we're doing is we're linking the second switch live over to the room stat common, and then that obviously goes directly back to the boiler. So as soon as you turn the room stat on now, that is going to fire up the boiler, and it doesn't need to open up the zone valve for the central heating because it's already open. So that's what I've done there. And secondly, the new open zone valve that I've installed on the central heat inside, that is linked directly into the common coming out of the domestic hot water cylinder stat. So normally that would be linked to the brown wire on your domestic hot water zone valve. So what I've done is I haven't removed any cables from the existing domestic hot water zone valve, but I've just added in the open zone valve on the heating brown wire into that terminal. So basically what that means is when the domestic hot water is calling for heat, that will also energise our central heating open zone valve and shut it, which basically means we're obviously not going to get any temperature flowing through to our radiators. So yeah, that's hopefully explained it as best as I can, I'm afraid. But like I say, it's not gospel. It's only suitable really to this situation. It's a shame this wiring centre is such a mess, otherwise it would have been a bit easier to show you, but that is it. So like I said, we've got two switch lives that we can wire into the boiler now. Now, not all boilers allow you to do this. You need to check which boiler you're installing to allow you to have domestic hot water priority. So the Ideal Vogue does. So we've now got two switch lives. We've got the switch live coming directly off the room thermostat, and the one that was there before, which is that orange cable there, which would have been our singular switch live that's already at the boiler location. So we can wire them into the boiler and separate the hot water and heating. The company Bullfix, or the brand Bullfix, were kind enough to send us these ultimate plasterboard fixings, which we've had a while, but we've only actually had a chance to use them today. So we're struggling to get a fixing up here because it is plasterboard, and I think in the house timber frame behind that. So yeah, we've just tried them out and they're working really well so far. So yeah, highly recommended, and thank you very much for sending them out. Okay, so it's just before lunchtime now. Bailey shot off to grab some bits for lunch and he smashed it out. It's pretty much nearly there. It's all piped up already. So we just got the obviously testing and just got to grab some reducers for up there. But other than that, we're nearly there. So I just want to explain to you about this wiring to this boiler. So the unique thing about the Ideal Vogue is it has got 2 switch lives. So you can see that there on the left, switch live 2, switch live 1. So this is the existing cable that come out of that Potterton Suprema. So what we've got here is we've got earth neutral permanent live, which is how it was in the boiler. And then we had a pump live, and then we had the switch live. So these are now both switch lives. We don't need a pump live because the pump is already in the boiler and that's controlled by the PCB. So what Bailey has done is he has smartly wrote down which was which before he disconnected it. So the black was our pump live. So basically the black is now our central heating live, which is going to go into switch live 1. So your central heating goes into switch live 1, and the existing switch live, which we haven't touched, which is the grey wire on this particular install, now goes into switch live 2. So that controls our hot water flow rate, so that runs at maximum, and that will go in switch live 2. So any of you who have fitted Vogues in the past, you might or may have installed the thermostat into switch live 2, which is perfectly fine if you're not doing it in this situation. So I'll get this wired up, and then once the fittings are all in, we'll be able to fill up with water and hopefully get this running. Okay, so the boiler's all wired in now and we've got it all up and running, and I just wanted to show you how you wire the Vogue in for hot water priority. So the existing switch live that would have been feeding the Potterton boiler is going into switch live 2. So that is pretty much controlling the domestic hot water flow rate. And the black wire going into switch live 1, that was our original pump live, which we've nicked, connected it straight from the common from the room stat and sent it almost straight back to here. So that's our 2 switch lives. We've got our neutral, obviously live and earth over on the right hand side. The open firm, that always comes with a link in, so leave that in. And then you need to add a weather compensator. So to get the differential temperatures between when you're calling for hot water and your central heating, you need to have the weather compensator connected. So it's only about £30. It just goes on the external wall, 2 wires, doesn't matter which way you get them round. And what will happen is the switch live 2, which is connected to the hot water, that will be governed by the thermostat on the boiler, and then your switch live 1, which is for your central heating, that will be controlled or helped to be assisted by the weather compensator. And basically what that means is you get this little dial on the right hand side, tells you what the outside temperature is, and basically it means that the boiler just won't fire up and go all the way up to the maximum temperature. It will just modulate with assistance from the weather compensator. So yeah, it just means ultimately you're going to be saving energy and saving gas. That's the main reason we're doing it. And also your hot water recovery time on your cylinder is going to be way less, because as soon as that hot water mode is plumbed in or turned on, sorry, it will just activate and yeah, heat it up. And as soon as it's heated, your central heating can go back on if you require it. So we haven't changed any of the controls at all. The existing timer is still in use, so don't necessarily need to change anything, but other than add that weather compensator just to make sure everything's okay. So yeah, this is all up and running now. We're just doing the final snagging bits, but yeah, happy with how it's all gone. And thank you very much for watching this video. If you've enjoyed it, feel free to like and subscribe, and hopefully see you on the next one.